Attention, everybody. The views and opinions expressed on this show are not necessarily those of Acts Ministry, Acts Media Group, and or their affiliates, supported ministries, and or nonprofits.
Oh.
So here they are today, still talking about Nehemiah.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, here they are. Teach us.
All right. Welcome to the, what are
Penny
we?
for your
Penny
thoughts.
for your
Penny
thoughts.
for with a penny for your thoughts.
That's my fault.
Yeah, that's all right. So good morning, Dana.
Good morning, Susan.
Yes.
How are you today?
I am blessed and highly favored. And good morning, Steve. You're joining us today.
Thank you, thank you.
What a joy.
What a joy. Thank you for transportation.
You're welcome. Love it. Thank you for
We always enjoy those talks, don't
yes, and patience too.
we? Yes.
Good morning, Jay. How are
Good
you?
morning. I'm good. How are you?
Okay, you excited about Nehemiah?
Yes.
Did you read about him?
I didn't.
You did. That's all right. You're going to learn about him.
I
now.
have read about him,
And-
but not recently, except for last week.
Yeah, got impressed. for
Yes.
you? Yeah.
Oh, yes. Always impressed.
Well, we've done chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, and Dana, you're going to start off with 5 this morning. Nehemiah, let's just talk about him for just a moment. Interesting character, a little bit of history about him. Does anyone want to share real quickly? He lived originally in Babylon,
Yes.
and he was
Yes.
actually born in Babylon, Jewish. And this amazing man gets called out of Babylon to go into Jerusalem to help rebuild Jerusalem.
I like to think of him as the guy who actually gets something done.
Oh,
And like politically speaking,
Well,
he actually gets something done.
yeah.
As opposed to a lot of talk about it.
Remember the talkie
Right.
talk?
The talky talk.
Yeah.
He actually did something instead of just talked about it.
He did, and he did it wisely. That was what was
Yes.
so profound. Is this man? He was the best of the best. He grew up in the king's court. That was in Babylon, in the city of Susa, and Galdarn. He was just right there in the midst of everything, and yet he is in the king's court, and he gets called of all places to go back to Jerusalem, and that is something that was laid on his heart, which is interesting because Babylon during the time of Nebuchadnezzar,
It was at the height of its power,
right.
generally speaking.
right?
And Jerusalem was not. But that's where God
Allowed
was.
it.
Yeah.
That's where God was,
And
that's-
wanted to return to.
Yes.
He wanted to return to it.
So that's kind of like people when we're broken. Guess what? He brings us back, doesn't he? And we have a choice whether we return or whether we do not, and whether we go when we're called or whether we do not. And here is this man who has a cushy job, serious job in the king's court, and he leaves. He goes. And that just amazes me when I think about it, that he would just pick up and leave. Well, anyway, with that, he had, we're going to start in, he's already been to Jerusalem. He's already gone around the city. He's already determined how to rebuild the wall. He goes from family to family, and he skips over the nobles. Interesting, the rulers. And I find that interesting because sometimes rulers do get out of touch, don't they, with the rest of the world. So let's go for chapter 5.
Chapter 5.
Chapter
Verse
5.
1. Okay.
Yeah.
And there was a great cry of the people and of their wives against their brethren, the Jews. And there were that said, We, our sons and our daughters, are many. Therefore, we take up corn for them that we may eat and live. I'm reading from KJV in case you need to know that. Some also there were that said, We have mortgaged our lands, vineyards, and houses that we may buy corn because of the dearth. There were also that said, We have borrowed money for the king's tribute, and that upon our lands and vineyards. Yet now our flesh is as the flesh of our brethren, and our children as their children. And lo, we bring into bondage our sons and our daughters to be servants, and some of our daughters are brought into bondage already. Neither is it within our power to redeem them, for other men have our lands and our vineyards. And I was very angry when I heard their cry and these words. Then I consulted with myself, and I rebuked the nobles and the rulers, and said unto them, Ye exact usury, every one of his brother. It seems like I remember exactly a commandment that says not to do that.
Uh-huh.
And I set a great assembly against them. And I said unto them, We after our assembly have redeemed our brethren the Jews, which were sold unto the heathen. And will ye even sell your brethren? Or shall they be sold unto us? Then held they their peace, and found nothing to answer.
Oh,
They were speechless.
Time out, time out.
Yes.
I'm not fully getting this. So what this is telling me, yeah, I am getting it actually. But first of all, I just got to make a comment about when he said I. That was 3 in 1, me, myself, and I. I'm just being a smart aleck. Anyway,
Right.
when I look at this, though, I'm just backing up for a moment. So what is happening is in the days when you couldn't pay a bill,
Right.
or what is interesting at this time now, the nobles now own the land. Is that
We
correct?
live in a very unique time period in history that there is not debtor's prison. Up until very, very in recent history, all of human history involved something called debtor's prison.
Okay.
And so if you could not pay your debt, then you found some way to pay it off. And if that included servitude, then it was better than going to prison for it and
Right.
working it off.
Right.
And so that is what they're talking about. They had king's tribute, they had taxes, they mortgaged their lands so they would have enough food. There was poverty, there was heavy taxation, and instead of helping their brethren, they would lend money at high interest rates
Right.
that couldn't be repaid.
Sounds kind of familiar.
It sounds familiar,
Yeah.
and there's also explicitly written in the scriptures, do not exact usury of your brethren.
Yep.
It's supposed to be a gift or just let them use it and then return it.
Okay.
It is explicitly written in scripture not to do what they're saying. If you see your brother who's poor, help him.
You know, I was just thinking when you were just talking about the debt and all, you know, right now, what do we get? What can we get if we put our money in the savings account? 1%? Maybe?
Maybe.
Is that it? And
It's such an incentive to
A
do
year.
it.
right. But if you use a credit card and you're getting 7.5, but mostly it's what, 11.5%, something like that. They're extracting 11.5% for you to use the money. And if you happen to miss a payment, it jumps up to like 21% or
Right.
something.
It doubles.
How is anyone going to be able to pay off their debt?
Right.
Well, the same thing was happening.
Nations
back
could
then.
do that to each other, but intrapersonal, you were not supposed to do that with your brothers.
That's profound to me. That is.
And so
Okay.
that's the situation that we're dealing with here.
And what verse?
In Nehemiah, we're going to start again in verse 9.
Okay.
That's we left off in verse 8. And so that's the situation we're dealing with. And when he addresses them like, what are you doing? Then they don't have an answer for it because they already know that what they're doing
Is wrong.
is wrong.
Exactly.
And verse 9, also I said, it is not good what you do. Ought ye not to walk in the fear of our God because of the reproach of the heathen of our enemies? In other words, people are watching what we do. If we're acting exactly like them, that tarnishes our testimony
Right.
to them. I likewise and my brethren and my servants might exact of them corn and money. In other words, I could be doing what you're doing, but I'm not. I pray you, let us leave off this usury. Restore, I pray you, to them even this day, now, their lands, their vineyards, their olive yards, and their houses, also the 100th part of the money, in other words, in full,
Right.
and of the corn, the wine, and the oil that ye exact of them. Then said they, we will restore them, and will require nothing of them,
You know what's interesting here, though? They were going to go on as long as they could.
unless they had been rebuked.
Right. And what is profound to me is to think that our leaders who start off to be good people and go out to serve the people in the United States, they turn around and pretty soon they're taking the taxes, they're taking the harvest, they have the first knowledge of what's available to make a profit on, and they grab it and they take it and go ahead and tax the people. So in a real sense, it wasn't the same, but it is the same.
There's nothing new under the sun.
Nothing new.
Principally, it's all happened before.
Well, and what we have to do is we have to be watchful And if we're not watching with our eyes, then what's going to happen is it's going to take over, and the evil will run rampant, and the others will own us, and we are locked in. So it's not that we're stupid, but sometimes we don't know how to get out of it. But what I loved was here comes Nehemiah, complete outsider. He's helping to rebuild the wall that the nobles could have started a long time ago. They're the ones who did have the money, but they weren't going to build the wall. They weren't going to protect the people because they were benefiting from the people being downcast. And they were benefiting from the people out in the fields whose fields they had actually taken and
Right.
enriched themselves. And now people who had owned this land.
Unlawfully.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing how right becomes wrong and wrong becomes right. And we justify our behaviors and we justify our thoughts and we get away with it.
Right, getting, just really driving home that point. There really isn't anything new under the sun. That is such a
true.
profound statement. I mean, this is the story of Nehemiah. Really is the classic, archetypical story just in history that you see playing over and over. The person of this that does have the heritage, but from the outside comes in.
Right.
Defends the people from outside forces and then helps correct the internal abuses. I mean, you see this in every superhero movie. You
Right.
see this in every
Right.
folk legend where a hero rises up, defends the people against internal abuse and external threats. I mean, it really is the classic story.
By the way, I just want to say good morning to Jason. Hi, Jason. Good morning. Glad you're with us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Picking up in verse 12 again. Then said they, "We will restore them, and will require nothing of them. So will we do as thou sayest." Then I called the priests and took an oath of them that they should do according to this promise. Also I shook my lap and said, "So God shake out every man from his house, from his labor, that performeth not this promise. Even thus be he shaken out and emptied." And all the congregation said, "Amen," and praised the Lord. And the people did according to the promise.
Interesting. They're being held accountable.
He's trying to,
Yeah.
if you don't do this, you're directly answering to God. He's making this as seriously as he possibly can.
And when you have to answer to God for something like that, it can be a real trial.
Exactly. Because paybacks are not fun
right.
with the Lord.
Right. I will repay, saith the Lord.
Yes, and he does.
And he can do it a lot better than us. Although
He might do it a whole lot different than we
I'm
would.
sure. Yes, he does. He does a lot of times. He does.
Well, we're getting into King Artaxerxes, and just a reminder that he came in after King Xerxes. King Xerxes was married to none other than Esther. And there are many Jewish scholars who believe that King Artaxerxes may have been, notice my words, I didn't say was, may have been the son of Esther and Queen Esther and King Artaxerxes, which make it very interesting that this would be a very easy way to open the door for Nehemiah to come in, and a kind heart towards Nehemiah and a softened heart. So anyway, so moreover, from the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when I was appointed to be the governor, by the way, I'm reading from the NIV, in the land of Judah, until his 32nd year, 12 years, neither I nor my brothers ate the food allotted to the governor. They didn't eat the food of the people, even though it was allotted. I think that's pretty powerful. But the earlier governors, who preceding me placed a heavy burden on the people, they took 40 shekels of silver from them in addition to food and wine. Their assistants also lorded it over the people. But out of reverence for God, I did not act like that. Now, what's really interesting, you could see that as being braggadocious, but it wasn't.
No.
In this case, he was saying, I am not going to be like those people. And it's kind of neat. Well, even if you compare it, sort of a little
Being
bit.
cautious.
Yeah, but even to current times in the U.S., we have a president who has chosen, like him or not, he has chosen not to take the income that is provided for him. And this
Right.
was provided for for Nehemiah to come in as a leader to help the Jewish people, but he said, "No, I did not act like that. Instead," and I love this word, "I devoted myself to the work on this wall. All my men were assembled there for the work. We did not acquire any land. He did not come in to profit. He had more than enough. He came in to help." That is significant, especially when we see the leader, as you said, Dana, acting. And you're welcome to interrupt. I love it because it's not interrupting, it's just adding to. So furthermore, 150 Jews and officials ate at my table, as well as those who came to us from the surrounding nations. Interesting. He is the one who is providing, and he's inviting surrounding nations to come in as well. And every 10 days, an abundant supply of wine of all kinds. Each day, this is what he provided: 1 ox, 6 choice sheep, and some poultry were prepared for me, and every 10 days, an abundant supply of wine of all kinds. In spite of all this, I never demanded the food allotted to the governor, because the demands were heavy on these people.
Right.
I mean, isn't that what we're to do? Is we're supposed to step back and to give to others and to help others who are
You
in
mean
need?
he didn't take what he was entitled to?
Right. He didn't even take it, but he didn't need it. Therefore, he didn't take it. And
He
I-
wasn't selfish.
Right. Remember me, he says, with favor, my God. This is its prayer. Remember me with favor, my God, for all I have done for these people. He asks the Lord to remember him with favor. There's nothing wrong with
No.
asking for the favor of the Lord, especially when you're doing right before him. And it's scriptural as well. So,
Especially when you're dealing and you have direct confrontation and you're in a problem.
yes.
It is not wrong to create a delineation between behavior.
Right.
You can say, hey, God or people, hey, here's the deal. Here's what's going on. Here's the situation. Here's what they are doing. Here's what
Right.
I am doing. It's not like, look at me. It's a, hey, here's the situation
Right.
type of motivation.
And I'm doing what is righteous. And it's not pompous. It's not about look at me. It truly is. And in fact, what's interesting is when Nehemiah does all the work that he does, and he helps to right the kingdom, in the end, he gets on his horse and he goes back to Babylon, and he's never heard from again.
Rides off into the
The
sunset.
man,
Exactly.
Or sunrise.
yeah, it is.
Sunshine, either one.
Right.
It's
You
like
get
an
it.
old cowboy movie.
Yes.
Off they go,
I'm
you
just
know?
saying, but he's going the other way, so
Yeah.
it'd be sunrise.
He's going off into the distance.
yes.
And I can just imagine it. I mean, what kind of man does this? There's very few that
Yeah.
will do that. I mean, I just met a man who picked up his family and back when his girls were teenagers, and he moved to Papua New Guinea, just picked up and left. He felt the call of God and went. And he was there for like 4 years. His wife came down with cancer and they had to leave. But what was so powerful about it was to listen to him tell the story and then how that affected his life later in life. But he had to raise the funds to go on the mission field for him, for his family. They get to Papua New Guinea. His wife ends up later on being diagnosed with cancer. A series of events happen, and yet he served. He didn't serve pompously. He came back.
That's a
and after-
powerful man.
Well, but listen to this. It gets worse. When he returned home to the States, and the wife is now sick with cancer, this man of God continues to work. He works. He's taking care of everything. In the midst of it all, they're going deeper and deeper in debt. He is in his 60s, and he is working nonstop, 6 days a week, whenever he can, to bring in money to pay off the debt. The wife has passed away. Here's what I want to say. Are we willing to do such a thing? Are we willing to give up our comforts and go and do as God calls us to do, and then recognize the consequences that fall out as a result of that? But what's best is when we get into chapter 6, and what happens next. So you think
The
everything's-
talk starts.
Yeah, again, talky talk.
Talky talk.
Talk
And a
about
lot of times, especially with people who do step out
Yeah.
and do the hard thing.
Right.
They get the talk. Well, if God really told you this,
Oh, yeah.
if God really told you this, then it would be like this scenario. It would look like this.
Right.
You know, if God really had told you, and I don't know the situation you're talking about, but I'm just mathematically speaking, it's the odds are highly in the favor that there were those that could have been saying to this man, you know, if you had really heard from God, then that wouldn't have happened that way.
Yep.
I've heard that.
Did that
before.
happen?
Yes. Well, yeah.
See, mathematically, probability is very high.
Right.
Because, well, if you had actually followed God, you know, proof that your wife, that you shouldn't have been there was that your
Right.
wife got cancer
And that
and
did
that you
happen.
had to come back.
I've heard
You
that
know,
before. I've heard that kind of scenario before.
And you're like, well, you must not have really heard from God. And,
Or
and exactly
your
what
faith-
comes here. Yes.
Your faith wasn't strong,
Strong
enough. There's
enough.
something wrong with you.
Yes.
Or you did
Yep.
something really bad that your
Right.
wife would have. No.
Right. How about, you know, you
Well, a
just
lot of that comes
do.
from not reading the whole scripture, just
Yes.
quoting one
And
thing.
also just being mean and
Oh.
having a critical spirit.
Yeah.
Constructive or destructive criticism.
I got to share something that just came in a little while ago. Beverly Thomas Lee. Hi, Beverly. I just want to say she wrote something really interesting when we were talking about the leaders and Nehemiah not taking the food. She wrote this: some people want the government to take care of them. The Bible says a man that doesn't work does not eat. It never said if you don't want to work, we will take from the people who do the work and overtax them and feed and house you. I am not against helping the helpless, but I am against the lazy. And there is a real difference.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I see that, and I mean, all of us have seen it somewhere along our journeys, and you've heard the stories. There are some people who are in need, and they may be on a street corner, but there is one lady that I see constantly in my hometown of Branson, and I see her on the street corners. I know where she is. I know where she stands. I know where she sits. Time and again, I've seen wonderful people stop to help her, get out of their car, talk to her to see what they could do to help. But I've watched the lady for 5 years now, and I've watched her move from downtown up into the strip, onto 76, across from Walmart, back down to behind Tanger Mall. She always finds a comfortable space with her sign, "Help, I'm homeless." And I'm like, we make choices. And Lord corrected me the other day, because there comes a time there's something wrong with that thinking. And the thing that I noticed for myself was sometimes my thinking gets skewed. And so he corrected me, even though I was passing judgment on her. I've seen her, I know what she's doing, and I know the game she's playing, but I have to understand I don't know where she's really coming from, because I have not taken time to find out. So I have a piece of guilt on me. So with one finger pointing forward and my judgment going that she could work, but she's not, I have got 3 pointing back on me, because I have given to her before. I've stopped giving to her. And I really like what Beverly wrote. Some people are lazy, but some people really do not have the ability to work for cognitive reasons, sometimes physical. I think in this case it might be cognitive for this person. But I agree. We're supposed to teach each other to fish, lift each other up. But truly, if someone is just being lazy by choice, and I don't know the answer to this one. But there comes a time we have to stop enabling people. And if you think about it, that is what Nehemiah did. He did it from both sides. He had the people helping themselves, rebuilding the wall. When things got bad, they brought the swords along. He taught them along the way how to protect themselves, how to care for one another, not to be frightened, and to keep on walking it out. And that was so profound that you start thinking about it. This is a leader who truly was a leader appointed by God. So,
Yeah, he came with a mindset. He came from outside of the problem. He came from a king's palace,
right.
and he didn't have the baggage of being in the problem. And
Right.
so that's why a lot of times it takes someone from the outside to say, here's a problem,
Right.
because you can get blinded by it,
Yep. The problem.
being in it.
Yeah. Exactly.
But he had heard of the problem.
Yes, he had heard of the problem, and it was on his heart. Let's go on to 6 and see what he starts to face next. Dana, you want to start reading for
Sure.
us?
Now it came to pass when Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem the Arabian and the rest of our enemies heard that I had builded the wall, and that there was no breach left therein, though at that time I had not set up the doors upon the gates. Then Sanballat and Geshem sent unto me, saying, Come, let us meet together in one of the villages in the plain of Ono. But they thought to do me mischief. No kidding. And I sent messengers unto them, saying, I am doing a great work, so that I cannot come down. Why should the work cease while I leave it and come down to you? He wasn't distracted by their ploy.
Right.
Yet they sent unto me 4 times after this sort, and I answered them after the same manner. Same answer, same question, same answer. Then sent Sanballat his servant unto me in like manner the 5th time with an open letter in his hand. In other words, everybody could hear this one.
Right.
That roaring of the lion is starting here, wherein was written, It is reported among the heathen, and Gashmu saith it, that thou and the Jews think to rebel, for which cause thou buildest the wall, that thou mayest be their king, according to these words. And thou hast also appointed prophets to preach of thee at Jerusalem, saying, There is a king in Judah, and now shall it be reported to the king according to these words. Now therefore, come, let us take counsel together. Then I sent unto them, saying, There are no such things done as thou sayest, but thou feign them out of your own heart.
How easy it is for people to lie. When they want to trip you up. I've been told that if you're in ministry,
If they can't find something, they will just make it up.
right.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I've been through that.
Well, and I've been told if you're in any kind of ministry, expect to be betrayed.
Yep.
You need to expect, and if you haven't experienced betrayal, that you haven't fully been tested yet. That's just one of the things.
That's
And-
true.
And I think it's pretty powerful. And we have to be able to get through those disappointments. People are people. What we have to always look at is where is our heart, and what did he just say? He said, nothing like what you are saying is happening. You are just making it up out of your head. Are we standing up when those betrayals happen and
Yeah.
when people, come after us?
You can't
Are
just
we
say,
willing?
"Oh,
And we
please
need to be
nice to
scripturally
me."
ready to defend ourselves too.
Yeah.
We have to.
I think
back
they
up.
also were seeing the actual king, that God was working, that God was working in it, that there was a power behind it that was greater.
Yes, and there was.
Because it was taking their power. From the very beginning, who started the work on the wall, right? The people with no power, people with nothing, people in debt.
That's powerful thought.
Well, the people that they were indebted to, they were still paying their debt. They were still doing their servitude or whatever to them, and then working on the wall. And then they said, well, why are these people working on the wall when they, and so you see these people are saying, well, this guy who's obviously the leader came and said, let's start working on the wall. And, I kind of would rather that the enemy can't just come in right outside my door.
right.
So it makes sense. So the leader came and made real sense,
Nehemiah
offered
yeah.
a real solution,
Yeah.
where before that the solution was, well, we'll just lend you some money, and then you got to pay it back with this much, So it seemed like a solution. They couldn't fix the wall themselves, but then a real leader came, offered them a solution that made sense. Well, I'd like to have the wall fixed, so I'm going to start working on the wall like this guy said.
Do you
Well,
re-
then people can't come in there now.
Well, but do you remember what happened too when Nehemiah came in? He he went around the wall and he put families in charge,
Yep.
and he skipped over. Remember, he skipped over the nobles.
Yeah.
He didn't want anything to do with the politicians who were
Yep.
running the show, supposedly, because they had not proven themselves worthy. They had not done their job.
No.
Yeah.
Well, the purpose of these lies, as it says here in verse 9, for they all made us afraid, saying, Their hands will be weakened from the work, that it be not done. Now therefore, O God, strengthen my hands. So the purpose, let me find the right words here. When the result of people's words are to weaken your ability to obey God,
Yes.
you know where it comes from. where it takes away your strength
Yes.
Yep.
from, or it would like to weaken you in your ability or in your drive, or distract you
From serving God.
from serving God. Because if he had come down from the wall to address all this stuff, I mean, he addressed it, but this is ridiculous. He addressed it, but he never stopped what he was supposed to be doing. You know what spirit it is of when its end result
Okay.
is to weaken your ability or drive to obey God.
Right.
So, interesting.
Love it. Go ahead.
Afterward I came unto the house of Shemaiah the son of Deliah, the son of Metabil, who was shut up, and he said, Let us meet together in the house of God within the temple, and let us shut the doors of the temple, for they will come to slay thee. Yea, in the night they will come to slay thee. And I said, No such a man should such a man as I flee? And who is there that, being as I am, would go into the temple to save his life? I will not go in. And lo, I perceive that God had not sent him, but that he had pronounced this prophecy against me, for Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. Oh, be careful who you receive words from, that's for sure. Therefore was he hired, that I should be afraid, and do so in sin, that they might have matter of evil report, that they might reproach me. My God, think thou upon Tobiah and Sanballat according to these their works, and on the prophetess Noedah and the rest of the prophets. Interesting that there's a political religious alliance coming against him.
Yep.
That would have put me in fear, because when you are in fear, you don't have strength.
Right.
It's true.
All your energy goes right.
Into the problem
Right.
instead of
They extort your strength and have you working on their behalf.
right.
Right.
It's a distraction.
Well, and it's interesting when we keep our focus on the Lord and we're really directed on where he wants us to go and what he wants us to do, all this other stuff, it does fall back. But after a while, it's very hard not to hear some of the distractions. But
And you like he did. Some of it, sometimes you do have to address the problem.
Right.
But you can't get distracted by the
Right.
problem. And that's kind of a hard line to find and to walk out, because it's very situationally based, and you really have to get the Holy Spirit's counsel
Right.
about divining what is leaving your work and what is simply addressing the problem.
Right. You know what's amazing to me too is that he was able to build this wall in 52 days.
Oh, that was a
Exactly.
miracle.
That was a miracle. Think about this.
Not many can do that now.
Well, and not only that, they had to look over their shoulder. They had to work 2 and 2. One was watching always for someone to come up behind. Well, we'll get into that more a little bit further down the road. But these people didn't stop, but they kept praying, oh, strengthen me, oh Lord. Strengthen me. Give us wisdom. Give us the insight. Give us the ability. And that is, do we ask that of the Lord? Do we say to the Lord, strengthen me? In this time for us as Americans, are we really saying, we need your help? We
Isn't
need
it
your
really
direction?
lead me, not necessarily strengthen? I mean, God, like you just said, is really telling of the time that we're living in, and it's false, I think, because it's saying who could do that now, right? Who could do
Right.
that? Nobody
Right.
could do this now.
Right.
God could do this now, just like He did then.
He
We're
could,
not
yeah.
even as desperate as they were.
That's interesting that you said that.
You know,
Right.
they had they could. The thing about paying their debts to these debtors, these people who are supposed to be their own people,
Right.
their own nobles,
Right.
keeping them in debt. Well, when they clean up the wall, the thief can't come in and steal, so they may pay off the debt quicker and
Right.
no longer be indebted to them. So there's a threat there, right? I think that's just I think you're right. We do have to trust God because He can do this now, just as He did then. He can heal
Right.
this nation. He can make this nation powerful, as long as He can be the strength of this nation. I shouldn't say He can make this nation powerful, because we have no power of our own.
Right.
If we do, it looks just like the nobles' power. That was their true power.
Right.
They were expressing their true human power. It's God's power through us when we obey God and we serve God. It's His power
I
that
like
makes
that.
this happen so
Yep.
fast. It's not that those people's hands didn't lay the stone and that their hands weren't enough to lay the stone and repair the wall, because it was, and it was enough to do it in that time, but it was with God's leadership, God
Yes.
leading them, and they're following God and saying, okay, you are right, God, we will do it. And then in 54 days, or however many you said,
52.
it happened. It wasn't because it was impossible. It's because with God it is possible. And it's possible now as it was then.
And there's a lot to be said about strength, because you can have physical strength, but if you're not emotionally or spiritually
Right.
up to it, it
Right.
can really affect you. There's a line in It's a Wonderful Life, right at the very beginning, when I forget, Peter and what's the angel that he sent?
Not
Yeah.
Clarence.
Thank you. That
Clarence
comes
the angel.
telling him about George Bailey here on Earth. I have an assignment for you, and Clarence is like, "Oh, is he sick?" And St. Peter's like, "No, worse. He's discouraged."
Powerful.
And now I know that's not, the deal with the angels and stuff like that. That's not good theology. I'm not condoning that. But that principle is very, very biblical. And so you can have the strength, you can have the ability, you can have the power, but if you don't have the mental strength and the spiritual fortitude,
Right.
then even your natural strength is abated.
Right.
And so that's why so much of this talk was to make them afraid, because they were doing the work. That was why the talk happened. They couldn't necessarily physically stop them. They had to just get them to stop themselves.
Yes.
It's kind of like, cast yourself down from this wall. He
Okay.
can't make us do it. He has to
Right.
persuade us to surrender anyway.
It's believing in
And there's
something
another
else, yeah.
great litmus test, if there are words that are spoken and its ultimate end result is that you are weakened in your ability and or enthusiasm to obey God,
Right.
you know what spirit that is of. Here's another litmus test. It comes in the very, very next verse 16. And it came to pass that when all of our enemies heard thereof, and all the heathen, that they had built the wall in 52
Right.
days, and all the heathen that were about us saw these things, they were much cast down in their own eyes, for they perceived that this work was wrought of our God. You have to watch out who mourns when you succeed.
Yes.
Who is down when the work of God is accomplished.
Yeah.
What spirit is rejoicing or what spirit is mourning. That's another litmus test that you can discern, kind of what spirit
Right.
is in operation. So that's very interesting as well. Want me to move on?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Verse 17, moreover, in those days, the nobles, this is very indicative,
Yes.
the nobles of Judah sent letters unto
Tobiah.
Nehemiah. Hey, brother, we'd like to talk with you, but no.
Mm-hmm.
To Tobiah. And the letters of Tobiah came unto them. For there were many in Judah sworn unto him. Were they sworn unto the service of the people? Were they
No.
really swearing unto the service of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Not really. Because he was the son-in-law of Shechaniah, the son of Arah, the son of Johanan, and had taken the daughter of Meshullam, the son of Berechiah. Also, they reported his good deeds before me and uttered my words to him, little tattletales. And Tobiah sent, I love tattletales. This is in sarcasm and air quotes of people,
Yeah.
just in case
Yeah.
you didn't get that. And Tobiah sent letters to put me in fear.
But he didn't go there.
But he didn't go there.
He didn't go there. I think that's really important that we have to know what is a lie and what is, Satan comes to rob and steal and kill.
When
End of
push comes
story.
to shove, you have
Yes.
to know who is on the side of the Lord.
Yes.
Exactly.
Come up unto me. Said many scenarios in
Right.
the Bible. It kind of came down to that, and when push comes to shove, and you kind of see a coalescing of within a group of people. Say conflict breaks out, you will see coalescing of different groups of people. And a lot of times it is not just he said, she said, it is who's really going to try to be applying the principles found in scriptures, and those who are just behaving like children.
Yep.
Pretty much.
Interesting. Behaving like children. We all want to be taken care of, don't we?
Yeah.
We really don't want to have to put really the natural spirit, my human spirit, maybe not for y'all, but mine is all take care of me. Take care of me. Look after me. I'm a good person. Look after me.
You want to be coddled in a sense.
Yes, not in a sense, really, honestly.
Well, how does it
I
really
guess-
end up?
Yeah.
Though?
Pardon?
How does it always end up, though? Really?
Reality?
Well, the reality of somebody taking care of you is if they fail, then who's to blame, right?
Well, I blame them.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah, you wouldn't
It's
blame
true.
yourself.
No, it's ourselves. Exactly.
Yeah.
It is. Because we're going back into that thing of even people want to use God to take care of them. They just want to sit back and say, well, God will take care of me, but I'm not doing anything to help him.
Yeah, you're not
Yeah.
going to just sit back and fold your hands and say, okay, God, take care of me.
Yeah.
He expects you to do some feet work.
Yeah. Do work, some feet
What?
work. What? Yeah. But, that is the bottom line. And, I have these beautiful women who come into the store. I love them. They say, my husband is taking care of me. For 48 years we've been married, he's taken care of me. I've never had to work. He's been so good. And I'm like, that's so nice. I haven't
Good,
had
nice.
that
That's
experience.
nice.
It is. But the bottom line here is that human nature is take care of me. I'll succumb. I'll do anything so that I don't have to take care of myself. And here we find that that's not the way we grow. It's not the way we become who we're meant to be. We really have to step into the middle of the ant's nest and begin to grow. And I think about Nehemiah. He stepped in the middle of the ant's nest, and he took hold of it. And he
With a
helped the
can of
people out.
Raid.
Again. Actually, that
Bringing
kept
it
the
really right down to the point.
But the beautiful part was, guess what? He was there, and the wall was built, and the raids couldn't happen anymore. And some of the people were not happy at all. He was quite the guy. Anyway, we'll start with next week. We're going to start with chapter 7, and we're going to go through. We're going to do a minimum of 2 chapters a week until we finish this amazing chapter. But what we see is the rebuilding of a kingdom and the returning of a people to their God and doing it God's way. And that's what we're really looking for. Okay? So I'm excited because, it really does parallel our country right now. I mean, I think of the country that I was born into and the country that my father talked about. My father always said if this country fails, it's not going to fail from an outside entity. It's going to fail because the people has failed from the inside out. And he's so right. He's so right. And we see the possibility. I'm not believing in that. I'm trying to step up in my own part. And you guys are too, which is phenomenal. And we've got to look at the fact. Christians always want to be nice and just be respected. It doesn't happen that way. We have the Sanballats in our own lives. We see them now nationally on the stage. We see them personally. We see them in our neighborhoods. We see them as friends, and we're like, what happened? Then why did they turn on me? Guess what? They're there. They're just real. So, but I think more than anything, we're finding out that when we get in this together as a group, as individuals, and we bring forth God's way versus our way, something amazing starts to happen. And I'm just believing and praying. So, anyone comments?
It's he's the one who gives it to us too. So it's not even just the way. A lot of times you can get focused on the way or the instruction as so important. It's actually the God that gives it.
Yes.
Because that's you look at all these names that are in this scripture that you're talking
Right.
about. They're all of the failures, right? Except for Nehemiah, and he wasn't speaking his own name. They talk about all these people. Well, they're all failed. It's God and his name, and he is the one who gives this word and these laws and this rule. He's the one that we need. It's one nation under God, and who is this God? You know,
Right.
I think that's important to remember. We've got to. It's not just the instruction, but it's the God that gives it.
I like that very much. It's the God that gives it. Steve, comment for
Well-
Penny for your thoughts, quick.
In Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ which strengthens me. We have to be strong in the Lord.
Okay. Dana,
Don't come down from the wall.
don't
Yeah.
come
Building.
down. Ah,
Really.
and mine is keep watching. Keep watching and protect yourselves. But in the mighty name of Jesus, we just give you praise and thanks, and stay tuned for Nehemiah next week. Penny, for your thoughts. Remember, in the least little thing, God can make it powerful, and that's what he did with his people in the days of Nehemiah.
Amen.
Thank you. See you next week, Thursday, 9 o'clock.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.